And not gonna lie, when people heard about, like her efforts of trying to sail to Gaza, bringing this aid, a lot of people criticize her mainly because, like, well, if you look at the boat, it's a very small boat. Not a lot of aid would be able to be placed inside that boat to be sent out, like to help the people of Gaza. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is the symbol behind it, Like, I mean, she's brave enough to go out there and actually, help out these people where a lot of the world leaders right now are still too busy condemning, Israel's actions. In a world drowning in plastic, rising in temperature, and filled with politicians who think climate change is nothing but a story time, one young teen said, "How dare you?" That's right, Greta Thunberg, the girl who in her early life used to skip school a lot, but nowadays she seems to be schooling the entire world right now. So who is Greta? She's a girl who was born in 2003 in Stockholm, Sweden. She grew up in a pretty well-known family. One of them is a musician and one of them is an actor. But unlike her parents, she wasn't really trying to look for fame or any type of popularity. She was craving for action, something that she wanted to be in the forefront of. She looked at the burning green world that we have right now and decided that she needed to take action. However, if you don't know, Greta Thunberg is also diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. If you don't know what it is, it's in the autism spectrum, alongside with her OCD and also selective mutism, which is a form of social anxiety. However, she didn't see any of these mental illnesses as any sort of a weakness. However, she turned it as a superpower that she can use to start her own campaign. And similar to any good story, it started with a sign, or in this case, a cardboard sign. And that cardboard sign, which was written in Swedish, and that sign translated to "School Strike for Climate." And this was during where, the topic of climate change was really heating up, literally. And with that being said, she decided to sit in front of the Swedish parliament. However, during this time, she was all alone. So it was only her sitting in front of the Swedish parliament. It seems like she's the world's most polite protester. However, the weird thing is that her actions seem to started a rally amongst other schools as well. Schools across the nation decided to gather up every Friday, similar to her, and decided to protest to their parliaments as well, yelling out for action against climate change. So every Friday, teachers would come to class to see their classes being empty. And I think during this time, when I saw these events unfolding, I thought it was amazing, because like for the longest time, a lot of adults tried to make a future for children. I mean, of course, like we've always wanted to make a better future for children. However, when the future has become so bleak to the point that even children take notice, that's where I think we as adults have failed to ensure a brighter future. So I think these kids who are taking a stand against a big issue such as climate change, I think this can grow them into becoming greater people in the future. Because Greta was the forefront of this rally against climate change, she was invited to many public world events to share her opinions and solutions on how people should deal with climate change. And that includes her speaking in the United Nations, where she said the bold words of, "You have stole my childhood and my dreams." And not gonna lie, you could see the politicians, they were stunned to hear like a little kid saying that to their faces. And from this, she became Times Person of the Year. And she even got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. However, when she was nominated, she decided that, I mean, most people would ride a plane, right? Seems like a sensible thing to do. But she decided to sail from her country to America on a boat. I mean, not gonna lie, that shows that Greta Thunberg is really committed with the idea of climate change. I mean, she's most committed than most of us, especially during New Year's resolution. So fast forward to 2025. She's 22, but now she's still not backing down from the action. But she hasn't been in the limelight for like a while now. So she decided, with the recent events that is happening in the Middle East, she decided to dive into the geopolitical conflict between Gaza and Israel. So she decided to join the Matlin, part of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, bringing humanitarian aid to Gaza. And what did this humanitarian aid contain? I mean, it contained baby formula, menstrual products, medicine, just, anything that could help the people out. And not gonna lie, when people heard about, like her efforts of trying to sail to Gaza, bringing this aid, a lot of people criticize her mainly because, well, if you look at the boat, it's a very small boat. Not a lot of aid would be able to be placed inside that boat to be sent out, to help the people of Gaza. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is the symbol behind it, she's brave enough to go out there and actually, help out these people, where a lot of the world leaders right now are still too busy condemning, Israel's actions. I mean, not gonna lie, condemning an action is pretty good, but, I can also condemn a murderer, but that's not gonna stop the murderer from murdering people. You know what I mean? When it comes to whether or not it being a PR stunt, let's be honest here. When we look at PR stunts, they're bad, but they're not as bad for it to be endangering your life. You know what I mean? Because Greta Thunberg is putting her life on the line here. And as we can see, the conflict between Gaza and Israel, the tensions are very high. So if you think that Greta Thunberg is just doing this for a PR stunt, let me tell you, this is a very heavy PR stunt that she's doing. I wouldn't know about you, but I wouldn't put my life on the line for something like a PR stunt. Fast forward to when she finally arrives near Gaza. Unfortunately, she was intercepted by the IDF. They raided her ship, and Greta, alongside of 11 other passengers that were on board the Madeline, they were, in my opinion, I think they got pirated. Even though the reports say that, she was in international waters. But, I guess with Israel being the, the very special child to everyone, it doesn't really matter, So when Greta and also alongside 11 others that were on that boat, they were pirated, they got arrested and also detained, they were deported back to where they came from. And not to mention, they were banned from Israel. You want to know how long? For 100 years. Because apparently Israel thinks that Greta is immortal and she could live that long to come back another day. So anyway, that's the end of the whole chronicle of Greta Thunberg. From her days of starting out fighting for climate change to her recent events on the conflict between Gaza and Israel. And not gonna lie, overall, I think she's doing a great job. Okay, people are saying she's uneducated, naive, so on, so forth. And I get it. The whole conflict between Gaza and Israel is much more complex than what meets the eye. However, when Israel is already destroying so much of Gaza, they're leveling the whole place. There's literally nothing left over there. And not to mention, the people are already in constant danger every single day. So with that being said, it's not hard to see which one is suffering more here. And, it's not like this thing is anything new. This thing has been happening long before this whole thing escalated. So in my opinion, the line has never been clearer. It's not a matter of religion. It's a matter of humanity. And it has never been clearer as it has now.